Welcome back, everyone. It is the anniversary of the Civil Rights Act. It passed 50 years ago. And there was a legitimate question. I laughed first when I thought about it, but nothing gets through this Congress anymore. With as polarizing as it is, the Civil Rights Act, and let's just remind everybody, basically you couldn't discriminate anymore with this landmark legislation based off somebody's race, their religion, their sex, or their ethnicity. It sounds like, of course, right? But it would end racial segregation in schools, workplace, facilities served by the general public, et cetera. Okay. Do you think that would make its way through the Congress now if the president, like LBJ, was the one shepherding it through? No, I know how you feel about it. They don't like this president. But basic civil rights.
Basic civil rights. Okay. Well, how about the civil rights of, and you're going to say this is the Supreme Court, but how about the rights of a woman for a company to pay for her birth control? How about that civil right and that right? So we can't even get past the right and the Supreme Court denying women when it comes to birth control, and we're supposed to believe that this Congress in 2014 would approve the Civil Rights Act? I don't think so. Absolutely not. I can't answer it in any other way than that.
I'm cynical, primarily of Dom. No, I'm cynical, but I suspect they would pass it, but they would pass a watered-down version of it. It wouldn't be as wide-reaching or all-encompassing, and it might be specific to only a few groups as opposed to for everyone.
Because you remember Rand Paul, what Rand Paul said the last time he ran for president.
He would eviscerate the Civil Rights Act because he doesn't think the business owners should be forced to make that decision on their own. Or
he shouldn't think business owners should be able to do whatever they want, he thinks.
This is a tough question to answer because the Civil Rights Act led to changes in the way we think as a society. I mean, I don't think that the kind of racism that we saw there, or the kind of sexism that we had seen up until that point, are anywhere near the level of being accepted in the broader society
Andrew,
today.
Let's say I agree with you, but then you get to the point of, even if it's not as ingrained, I think same-sex marriage is a good example of that. You don't hear the vocal opponents of it speaking as loudly or proudly like they may have even 4 years ago as it is now. But there was a recent passing of former Senate Majority Leader Howard Baker. He died last Thursday at the age of 88. And for those in the youngest generation who don't necessarily place the name, he was the former Chief of Staff to Ronald Reagan, and he was remembered, among other things, for being able to reach compromise despite partisan differences. Republican Senator Lamar Alexander of Tennessee says Baker supported civil rights legislation when most Southerners opposed it. And I'm quoting directly here from Senator Alexander. To me, his legacy is he was the champion of civility in politics. Today, we have too many people on both sides who are angry. There's a lot of good people on both sides of these political battles, and he always thought, speaking of the late Senator Baker, that you could express your opinions without attacking people. So even though I agree with you where bigotry, unless you're on certain parts of the radio dial, isn't applauded, the anger or the value of saying no just to say no because the other guy said it, in this case, a president with a funny name, right? Even if they liked it, wouldn't they just say no on principle if you just look at the recent few years of track record because it was the president who supported it?
I mean, they might, or they might seek additional change. I mean, don't forget, in 1964, you had Strom Thurmond, who did a 24-hour filibuster for the civil rights, one-man solo filibuster. That's how important he thought it was to defeat the Civil Rights Act, and that's how anti-civil rights his district or his state was. So you've always had that vehement opposition, and you've always had sort of stick in the mud in American history. They're definitely more empowered these days because of the Tea Party and that politics of anger, I think, that we're seeing in a way that we hadn't seen before. But an issue like this, they'd oppose the president proposing it, but there's enough public sentiment in favor of equality, in favor of civil rights.
You know what?
That would be...
I think that down deep, if you had a drink with the 40 some odd Republican senators, the vast majority would say, yeah, we need to do this in 2014 if we didn't have a Civil Rights Act. However, I think when it came time to vote, they'd find some way that it wouldn't pass because they wouldn't want to give the president a victory on it. As much as I think that you're overly cynical on this one, I think at the end of the day, if I had to vote, because we've seen after 9/11, we did get together as a country on certain
Right.
things. We do have the ability
Right.
to get together. We actually had healthcare reform passed, which was to me far more controversial than basic civil rights in this
Can I
country.
ask you another question tonight? I know you're like, it's your
Here it
show.
comes, here
but
it
here's the
comes.
question. And I'm not going to make this race-based.
Just
I
go
promise.
ahead.
But here's the question. If you, and you're very connected to the black community, if you went to a black barbershop tonight, and asked 10 brothers if they thought the Civil Rights Act would pass right now, what do you think they would say? How many would say no?
First of all, I think we'd have a reality show on our hands if I went to a black barbershop and I tried to sit in a chair. But anyway, why are you asking me? You know, it'd be 10 out of 10. And you know what? I'm with them. I'd vote also. But I don't think it's for the reasons that maybe those guys in the store thinks, that they hate the guy because he's a black guy and then whatever else. I just think it's become so politically cowardly but yet profitable to travel in the currency of no, to say no to anything that the other side says. And I don't even want to try this. They're both equally guilty. No. A core element in the Republican Party today believes if you say no to everything the president does, you're going to win and you're not going to have a primary. And you know what? I think that's a sad testament to where we are. But if I had to vote right now that the 1964, the Basic Civil Rights Act, would pass today in 2014, I'd go to Vegas and bet against it. And I want you to be right, but I just think we've reached that sad state, and that's
Would we
kind
be
of
coming off a March on Washington? Would we be coming off 10 years or 15 years of a civil rights movement the same way? I mean, it's hard to take these things out of
And we'd
context.
be coming off of Fox News that would be strongly advocating the other way.
How would they have covered the March on Washington? That
Oh
would have been,
my
that would have been
God.
interesting.
There's rioting in the streets. Coming up next here, we're going to switch gears. I'm going to bring in our legal panel here where among the cases we're going to look at is the man dubbed the Cannibal Cop walking free after spending nearly 2 years in jail. Didn't kill or eat anybody, but the judge says he's not going to penalize him for only thinking about it. As I said, our legal team will weigh in. Andrew, Dominic, thank you so much.